I'm mad about it. You call your mom to complain about life, trying to avoid specifics. A bird shit on your car. You've been achy and stuffed up all week. There's no food in the house. She says she'll pray for you. This one's called Always Already, which is like a Derrida thing, for those of you who read a lot of critical theory. I'm the only person in the room. She asked me to see this from her perspective, and I couldn't bear to. Or maybe it was just that I couldn't, like I wasn't able, and I used the pain as an excuse for my failing. This was all over the phone. I was standing on the first step of the pool at my parents' house, slapping at mosquitoes in the dark while a raccoon got into the garbage. She was just a voice was all. She lived in the static and the dropped syllables all the time during that time. I couldn't see it from her perspective because I couldn't see her. I knew exactly every piece of furniture, every place she might sit, every cast-off hair lining the baseboards of the bathroom. I could picture it. I knew where the cumin was, where the flashlight was, where the most embarrassing vacation photos were hidden. Once she hung up on me, though, with an exasperated, I have to work in the morning, which she invariably would, because she was waiting out one of my long, thoughtful silences, the ones that drove her nuts, the ones that proved that I was calculating, not careful, with my language, the ones that showed that I could not possibly be capable of the immediacy of love. Once she bore all this and hung up the phone, I would cease to know the only thing I knew about her anymore, which was that voice, which was that long-suffering sigh, which was that I have to work in the morning. I said, "You asked me once what it was like," a sentence that I felt coming out of me like a blow to the throat. She said, "I've tried so hard to understand." I repeated her words softly to myself. What can you do with a sentence like that? I felt like it was the kind of sentence that could never be true. I said, "Do you want to know what it was like?" And she didn't answer. I said it again in case she hadn't heard. The water in the pool was warm and lapped softly at my calves. The voice that was her voice said, "What the fuck kind of answer do you want here?" I said, it was like I was pretending to have a home, but it was just an enclosed space with things in it. The sum of its parts was parts. She didn't respond. I waited for the call to end. Okay. What was the nature of the war? That's a question that sticks to you. Was it personal, psychological, fought in the dim rivulets of your brain? Was it the thermonuclear of the domestic dispute, or was it a ground war between you and your concept of God? Tanks and tanks and tanks, the same kind your uncle rode in during the first war in the Gulf, where he got his eyebrows singed off due to a misfired shell, and then later he killed himself. He sticks to you, too, as a confirmation of what your blood is capable of. Murder in a belly of iron. Suicide, you don't know how. You were too young to be trusted with the knowledge. You were instead entrusted with all of his Kenner Star Wars figures. And how can you be counted on to write a novel if your metaphor keeps spinning back into memory? How you ran your finger along the plastic faces of Nien Nunb and Boba Fett like they held knowledge. You're quite the fool, as I'm sure you know. She was the casualty or the enemy, and the difference is splitting hairs when the full weight of guilt comes down. Your mother's family is made up of ghosts. Your father's family has mostly managed to stay alive. You think there must be something to this. What you are writing is an obituary. The saddest thing about mortality isn't death. The saddest thing about mortality is the closing off of forgiveness and recognition for the hurts and joys we've caused without knowing. It's people from our past who have lost touch without saying all they wanted to say, carrying with them the possibility of stepping onto a subway car one day in the future and seeing us there, smiling widely, a chance happy meeting. That's what you're afraid of more than anything, that something you value will be gone. You type, "I believe I have loved far too many people and talked off far too few ears. I believe I should try to make it simpler." You're afraid to be alone, and maybe that's where all this comes from. But maybe being alone is not a terrible thing to fear. Maybe it's not a character flaw, but a healthy admission of weakness. Still, it undercuts all your relationships, stretching back as far as you can remember. And this is the last little bit. It's called Irresponsible with a Heart is All. The worst part was there not being a worst part. Like, how did we get here? I thought maybe if we got that dog, then there would have been something to feel lousy about at least. Look at it this way. I still couldn't sleep at night, yeah, but I actually felt like getting out of bed sometimes. Looking at her across the table at that same damn coffee house as always, she looked more beautiful, more alive, like I had taken something great and scuffed it like a sneaker. The question then is one of living with how the mistakes maybe weren't mistakes, at least on a subconscious. She asked if I had all the papers. We talked like old friends with a bitter lack of a future, ready to blame each other for things as a scholarly exercise. Every once in a while, she got those saran-wrapped eyes and didn't talk for a second, looked out the window or picked at her fingernails painted blueberry dark and chipping. We both knew, though, that it was all reflex. She said, "I have to go to the bathroom. Can you get me a refill?" I watched her go, looking for something new in her step or in the way her body navigated chairs, and it wasn't until she turned the corner that I realized I never knew her drink. Anyway, that's it.